All right. Well, thank you for joining me for this little conversation. You're very brave to
Thanks.
just be willing to face talk about it. I think that
Yeah.
that's amazing, and I'm really grateful that you're here. I
Thanks.
heard you talking with Justin on you guys' podcast, and
Yeah.
kind of the time period you're talking about really experiencing a lot of depression and anxiety. It was like when we became friends,
Hmm.
which was a while ago, a few years ago.
Yeah.
So, oh, somebody just saw you're pregnant again.
Yeah.
That's, yes, congratulations. Somebody else has 3 teenage sons. God bless. I'm about to be there. All right.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah, so hard. Okay. So, um, why don't you just start there? Why don't you just talk to us about like kind of when you recognized and realized that what you were experiencing was not okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, okay, so I think it's gonna sound kind of like sad, but maybe not sad, but like wow, like I didn't even notice it because I think like depression is so weird, and I feel like I'm hoping that whoever is like chiming in, maybe even just like one person, because I feel like can like relate to me and or at least have some kind of like encouragement, just because there isn't like a one size fits all. So when I was like praying and thinking about this, I'm like, how am I going to like encourage? But I'll just like share what I went through and like my process, and how I'm still alive, to be honest.
Right.
And I don't mean to be disrespectful, like when I like smile and laugh, and I think that's just kind of like because this is a very serious issue, but like there like probably 4 years ago, like it was so bad to the point where I didn't know if I could keep going.
Right.
And so but yeah, I think it just shows like when I do talk about like depression and anxiety and about like where I've been, a lot of people are shocked because I think um for me personally, I'm really good at hiding it
Mm-hmm.
behind like just my
Right.
personality. And so I think yeah, like 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't really um I think I was so blinded by like the internal pain that I didn't really know how to talk about it, to like seek help. And I think like what happens is like we get to a point where we are so desperate and we are so there. I think probably like 100 times I was like, God, I am mad. Like I am so upset because I just feel like I keep on like coming to my knees and praying that this leaves me, and I didn't know how to reach out for help, like what that even like looked like.
Mm-hmm.
Um because as I was growing up, like emotional health wasn't really a thing, and
Mm.
like healing and all kinds of stuff. And so anyway, I just like did not really know. I think I was just in survival mode. I've been in
Oh, yeah.
survival mode for about 4 years, and I was talking with a friend just last night, and I think just this year, because I started counseling in November of just
Mm.
last year,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so it's pretty recent. And I think I'm just now realizing, like, wow, like I have a lot of things to go through and a lot
Yeah.
of just like cleaning up, but not in a way that is like forced, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, I know it's kind of like a lot of just, yeah.
No, it's good. I think there are two things that you said that are really important. I think one is that you, I know that you were raised Christian and you were raised as a believer. And so to fall on your knees night after night and pray that this feeling of darkness and heaviness and not being able to go on would leave you, and then for that to like not be enough feels like like that's on you a little bit, right? Like you're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, well, I'm not good enough at praying, or God doesn't care, or you know what I mean? And you wear the burden of that. And I think it adds to a lot of people who experience anxiety and depression, if they are believers, that they feel like if they had enough faith, or if they believed enough, or if they prayed enough, that it would leave them, and that if it's not, then that's
There's
something
something
like
wrong with
there's
you.
something wrong. Yes.
And
Yeah.
for me, it's like I strive so much just for approval. And so growing up, I felt like I could never really please anybody. So I was like, how am I going to like please God when I can't really please like the people around me? And so exactly what you're saying, I just felt like for once I was like, okay, I'm going to get on my knees. And it was just so many times, and nothing was changing, and people around me in the church, and I have grace and like love because everyone's broken, but it was like it just kept on. I kept getting like advice of like, oh, just pray like this or do this or do this. And as a firstborn like striver who has so many like wounds of like people pleasing, I was like, I am doing that, what's wrong with me? And that actually put so much more of like a burden on people that are already so weak. It is like it is undescribable. Like anyone who has struggled with depression, it's like I got to the point, Amber, where it was like my body physically was like deteriorate. I can't even say that.
I got you.
It was so real I can't even say it anymore. But it was so bad, and I was like, and that's why there was like a season where I even, bless his heart, like I don't know if he's still on here or not, but my poor husband, like he experienced trauma through me because I literally felt like I could not go on. And like now we're finally like working through that, and it was just like, yeah, it was a really weird time, but I can't really give any credit to like, because I feel like I kind of like shunned God out almost in that season, because I was like, well, if you're not going to help me, like, I'm tired of like trying so hard to like please everybody in my life, and I don't have the capacity spiritually, mentally, or physically to like try and have you help me. And so yeah, it was, I don't have any like, I can't give myself credit of like, yeah, I did this thing to like stop me from like completely taking my own life and just all this stuff. And I think just having a husband that didn't really give up, to be honest, was like the main thing. And then obviously God was there. I just did not feel him. So
yeah. And I think that a lot of people who find themselves in that position would say the same, like, and all of the platitudes and Bible verses and things you could throw at them are not going to be helpful in those situations when you're walking through that kind of time in your life. So Justin played a big part in your healing?
He did. I think he was like my earthly guard of like, he kind of like protected my life. I know that sounds very heavy, but he just like made sure that I was like taking care of myself, and that I was like getting out and being social, and that I wasn't doing anything crazy. And I know that this is like super heavy, but I think like there was just like a few months where it was like this heavy, where he really had to like, we had to hunker down, and it didn't help like my circumstances too. I had like just quit my 9-to-5 that was paying really well because it wasn't fulfilling me, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a wedding photographer and all this stuff, and being married to like a famous person and just feeling like I have to like live up. So basically there were so many things. I mean, if you look at, I feel like any human being, but especially people that struggle with depression and anxiety, not to put this as like another task or another striving thing to do, that's not what I'm saying, but like we have the opportunity to, when the time is right, to look at ourselves, I believe, and almost like a scavenger hunt of just like what like where are these coming from? Because I feel like someone said emotions are not negative, they're just like a call for action.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really love that, because it's like, I think like a lot of us growing up are so shamed for our negative emotions.
Right.
And so like when I don't know,
It's an opportunity to like say, okay, I am suffering right now and it doesn't feel good, but this is an opportunity for me to figure this out, like to
yeah.
figure out the root cause, what's going on. So what do you think, so what did you start doing when you recognized, this is like really not
Something's up.
okay. I
Yeah.
am really not okay. When that happened, what did you do?
I'll just like fast forward to like last November when I finally like committed, because I was just like, oh my gosh, especially like when you have kids. Like once I had my first child, I felt like my life was like so much harder, and I was like, I didn't get to the point where I was like 4 years ago, but I was like, I am so close to this point, because again, like we are so complex. We're humans that have like, especially people that, I mean, you can speak on this too, but like we bottle emotions, and it's like we could have like things from our childhood that are like in there, and I give credit to we actually
Uh-oh.
oh, did it go?
Oh, sorry. You just paused for a second, but you came
Oh,
back. Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
good. Okay, good. But like, just we're so complex. Is like my Tinley's birth was so hard, and it was because so much of it wasn't just physical. It was like
Oh no, you paused
spiritually and
again.
emotionally. So oh, it keeps on pausing. How about that? Is that
There
better?
you go.
Okay, good. I'll try and like stop
Good.
moving.
Okay, so you said Tinley's birth brought up a bunch of stuff for you,
Yeah.
basically, like a bunch of your trauma, a bunch of the things that you've been shoving down.
Yeah, totally. Because I was like, is this what everyone goes through? And honestly, the more that I was thinking about it and processing like her birth and just everything, every traumatic thing that happens, you know, or happened to me or happens to us, I feel like there's no way that things are going to stay hidden no matter how good you are at like hiding things.
Right. Yeah.
And for me, I go from one extreme to the next where I'm like, I want to just like throw things up and just be like, you know, an emotional mess. And then there's some things where I'm like, I'm going to keep this hidden. And then, so I'm learning to manage my emotions, acknowledge my emotions, but manage them. But fast forward to like November, just to answer your question.
Yeah.
Just, it was such a weird process. Counseling is so weird. Because but it's such a blessing, because I like it was like I was talking about like what happened to me, and throughout like my whole entire life up until this point, and she was like, she gave me affirmation, but then there was like grieving that came along with that. And so it was just like, so that's kind of like what kickstarted that, and being like, okay, wow, you know, especially like, I don't know, I think there's like stages, and maybe you can speak on this too, but I feel like you would speak better on this, because I feel like I'm still kind of like in the thick of it. I feel like I'm finally like, since I'm so visual, I feel like I'm finally like standing up in my life, instead of like either sitting down playing the victim, like, and I can like say that to myself, there's a time and place to like to lay on the floor and play the victim, like that is not a bad thing. But if you stay there too long, for me, you could just be very comfortable like staying there, and it's so not healthy. So so for me, I'm kind of like just now in this, like I can stand up, Like I can,
Yeah.
like, I can be myself. I can be
Yes.
who God created me to be. And so I hope that answered your question.
Well, yeah. So your first step then, when you kind of recognized that you were not doing well,
Yeah.
was to get help, right? To go seek
Yeah. But it
counseling
took so
because,
long.
right, because I think we think that we're supposed to be able to fix ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you just sometimes you are not equipped to do that job. I
Mm-hmm.
would argue most of the time you are not equipped
Yeah.
to do that job. Like we as humans were made to have connection with each other, right? Like, and so to be able to speak into one another's lives and to be able to lay out what's happening with you and in you and doing that with somebody who can hold space for that, like somebody who is not trying to fix you,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure your first several counseling sessions were just a counselor being like, so how do you feel about that? So how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
But right, like
Yeah.
counselors, I think are so much like Jesus in that way, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they answer every question you ever ask with
Yes.
another question.
Yeah. I'm like, this is exhausting.
It's like, can you just tell me what to do?
Yeah. Yep.
I
Yes.
don't want to dig this all up. It hurts.
Yes.
So I think that it's really brave that you took that first step. And I love that you can admit too that you're like in the thick of it, right? Like you don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
You are still walking it out. You're still figuring it out. You're still learning about your body and your mental health and your emotional health and what triggers you or what helps you stand up
Mm-hmm.
and all those things that are tools now in your toolbox
Totally.
to like use to be healthy, to be the best Brittany you can be,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Exactly.
So yes, Brene Brown always says like the emotions are like light switches. Like you can't have them just some of them turned off, like some of the lights turned off, some of the emotions turned off. You either have them all on or you're not feeling. So you either are loving and having joy and having peace and really being present with your husband and your kid, or and and also you're feeling the pain and the dark and the things that hurt and the things that you don't want to think about because those come on the same platter,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so you can be like, oh, I'm not going to feel any of those bad things, but then I'm also not going to feel the
Anything
joy and
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
all the good things too.
Yeah.
So it's make a choice
Yeah.
which one you're going to
Exactly.
do. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think too, like once you get to a place where it's like so important to have grace with yourself, like when you are, because my counselor actually, I keep on cutting myself off, but I will make my point. Basically, my counselor on my first session, she said it sounds like to me as if, you are, let's say, anyone who struggles with like mental health, they're in a hospital room with like um, pneumonia, right? We're like just barely making it. And she said, just imagine yourself coming into that room or having other people come to that room and look at you on the hospital bed and say, get up, like get
Mm.
dressed, put something on your face.
Fix
You look like a
yourself
mess.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like go do the dishes, like go do all this stuff. And that is like horrible, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like what I was doing for so long. And finally I was like, I cannot like do anything. And I don't want to like keep living like this. But one more thing that I want to point out is finally when we allow ourselves to like finally rest in that hospital bed, it's actually like we can learn about like, here's like another like picture and analogy. It's like, okay, like what's gonna help me, like what hydrates me, or like basically for me, I'm learning like, okay, here's what I struggle with, and you know, just learning more about myself, and like not in like a condescending way where it's like, oh, I can't believe I'm like this, because I used to do that all the time.
Right. Well, and when you're in a hospital bed with pneumonia, let's say, then like, yes, you need an IV with fluids. You need to eat chicken soup. You need to lay in bed and rest. Those are things that are going to make you better. So you have some things in your toolbox that help make you better when you're
Yeah.
struggling with your anxiety or depression. Yeah? So
Yeah.
what are some of those things? What are like they're not the same for everybody, but like what are your things?
I think honestly, just like I think like self-awareness for me is like the best thing. And sometimes I feel like I can be kind of like too self-aware with things where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's always extremes to everything. But I feel like for me, just knowing like, okay, these are like what you said, like these are my struggles. These are like my triggers. And this is like, what does Brittany need? Because I always thought that was like such a selfish thing. Like,
Mm.
what does Brittany like? Brittany needs like creative time. Brittany needs this, and I think like we live in a world where um, self denial is praised, and
Mm. Yeah.
I just was living in that. And then
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you add in, because we are all like, we all have things that are done to us, but like when you add in like, you know, we are raised by in a fallen world by fallen parents that try to love us, right? And you know, and if not, then like that still adds so much
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I cannot say like the word that I want to say, like complex.
Complexity.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I feel like 3 weeks being like cooped up into the house, it's like this is like the most like adult conversation I've had, and it's fabulous. So but it just, yeah, I feel like I don't even really know where I was going with that, to be honest, but it's just like
You're just saying that like you felt selfish thinking about what it was that you needed to feel better.
yeah, yeah, honestly, Amber, it's like it's just being like aware of what life has given to you in
Mm-hmm.
this season. Like for me, childhood, and then like and then there was a period of time where I really didn't have like any identity at all, like
Mm.
at all. And then
Mm-hmm.
I, you know, married Justin, and he's so confident, and like people like love him and all this stuff. But God, like I would not change anything about like being married to Justin. I love him. I love you if you're still watching. But like, um, but it's been hard because it's like he was so confident in his identity and people were praising him, and I was like, I've never been praised, like, you know, and that was like my
Shines a spotlight on all of your like
triggers
anxieties and
and
things. Yeah.
pain. Yeah, but now I'm at the point where I'm like, that's okay. Like again, like knowledge for me, I'm just gonna say like knowledge is power, and like there's a time for you to like look back, because sometimes like I feel like we're too, it's not the right timing to like look back and like and to seek knowledge, and like sometimes like we just need to be nurtured, and we need to find a community that like will like just hold us. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying like if anyone's like depressed on here and is like literally just like army crawling, basically like surviving, now would probably not be the best time to like, I don't know, like try and sit up and like look behind you and like figure out like
Mm. What
all of
happened
that.
in your past? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah,
got to take care of what's going on right now and in your
yeah.
present and what's going on with you. I read a quote once that said something like depression is shame and worry about your past, and anxiety is like shame and worry about the future.
Mhm.
And so the answer for both of those things is to be really grounded and present in what's happening in your life right now,
Yeah.
and to give yourself what you need right now, and to pour in to the things that are occurring right now. And then when you get to a place where you can be really present, you can be really healthy in your right now, You can start to address like, oh, there was that thing that happened to me in my childhood that sucked, and it told me this lie that I've believed about myself ever since.
Yeah.
Because that's what most trauma is. Most all trauma tells us a lie that we adopt as our truth, and then we spend our entire lives collecting um, collecting pieces of evidence to prove that lie to ourselves
Mm.
as true, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So like something would happen to you that says you're never good enough, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Brittany, you try and you try and you try to win my favor, to win my love, to win my praise, to be good enough, but you never are,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so then you go and you're like, yeah, and you're like, I am never good enough. I am never good enough. I never will be good enough. And so then you go around with your eyes peeled looking for proof that you're not good enough,
Yeah.
that you'll never be good enough. And the weight of that evidence on
Mm-hmm.
your heart and in your life is indescribably heavy, right? And you
Yeah.
were talking about like laying down, and there's just a time that you're laying
Mm-hmm.
down, and that's
Yeah.
fine. You
Yeah.
get to just lay down sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's important that you realize and you recognize that you need to stand up.
Yeah.
I always think about it like a weighted blanket, right? Like you have
Yes.
like
Yes.
like it's so comfy and cozy and like lovely like when you're laying under it, and that's like the weight of the depression and the anxiety and the lies that you spent your whole life believing are like a weighted blanket on you, and you don't even realize how heavy it's getting and how it's suffocating you. You just don't realize that that's happening
Yep.
until you try to push it off, and then you're like, oh, like
Yep.
I
Yeah.
can't push that off, you know? And
Yeah.
so you need help.
And for me too, I did get to a point, like I'm not going to say like I almost, but I did get to a point where that comfort blanket was comfort for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I say, it's so important to like realize the time. And I feel like, I mean, what would you advise for people like to, like how to, because I know it's so different for everybody,
Mm.
but it's like, how do you find, or how do you go about doing that where it's like, okay, like there's a time and place to like almost
Stand up.
maybe like not like confide in the comfort blanket, because it's just like, you know what I mean, like lay there. I'm so about analogies, like I hope everyone's like following this, but it's like to realize, okay, I need to like get out of this comfort blanket, because it's like
Right,
it's the comfort part is not comforting.
right. So I think that recognizing, so like when you recognized it, you were saying like, I don't want to get out of bed,
Mm-hmm.
right? My actual body hurts for no apparent reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to see people. I don't want to leave my house. I don't feel love as deep or joy as deep as I know that it's existed for me before. Like, acknowledging those things are is the way that you recognize that that you're being suffocated, that you're slowly being smothered underneath that blanket, and it's time
Yeah.
to start getting up. You know,
Yeah. No.
that's when you can recognize it, is when you're like, and sometimes it might take somebody else to call it out in you, right? Like if
Yeah.
Justin was like, dude, not okay, you have not showered in 2 weeks and I love you, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's
No, totally. And it's like I used to, again, like it's like the self-denial thing. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like almost like we believe like if we're struggling so much mentally, we're like, like for me, I'm like I'm not good enough. So especially like when I became a mom, I was like, and there was a time where we were so legalistic, so that also shook me to my core.
Mm.
But I was like, I don't deserve, like, I'm not going anywhere, so why do I don't need to get a shower. But then, like, that turned into, like, so much self-denial that it was, like,
Mm-hmm.
off the charts. And I was like, oh, my word. Like, if I look at photos of myself, even Amber, even photos of, like, my house, there was no life in it. And, like, knowing
Mm.
me, I am, like, a colorful person. I, like, I love color. And there was yeah, you could just tell. I feel like anyone
Yeah.
who is struggling with mental health, um, or if you guys have like friends that have or family members, just like ask them, or I don't know, it's just like you can just it's kind of like secret. This is like a secret. I feel like I feel like it's not always like this evident in everyone, but at least for me, I could tell that like
You weren't
what was going
yourself.
on was like showing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it does show for most people. I think that the people who you're closest to can look at you and be like, whoa, like something
Mhm.
is not okay. Like Justin knew something was not okay. I was just getting to know you at that time, so
Yeah.
I did not know that like anything was not okay,
Yeah.
right? Like, and so I think that that's important that you have people in your life who can call that out, but also
Mhm.
that you can look around and be like, my house looks pretty blah, and that's not really who I am. Like,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
kinds of things. I also, so do you have any like daily things that you do to keep yourself in a mentally healthy place? Do you have like any ways that you try to connect to your body? Any ways that you like work to stay healthy that are outside of your counselor's office?
Yeah. So I try and yeah, definitely stay on top of like my me and my counselor and like meeting. But I'm realizing, especially with being home for like 3 weeks. I mean, we've been out, but it's been hard. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm introverted and I used to play on that all the time, but now I'm like I don't care how introverted I am, I need friends and I need
Mm-hmm.
community.
Yeah,
And
right.
so that's one of the things where I'm like, life is busy, and most of my friends now have kids, and everyone's kids are sick right now. And so, like, this fills my cup. This is, I know this isn't like face to face, and I can't squeeze you and hug you and just like love on you, but it's just like this still is like something. And so, just making sure that my community, because that's a blind spot for me for sure. And then also just like very practical ways is moving.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, when I'm not pregnant and I don't have like a serious dad bod going on right now, I it's like bad. Like I was walking on the treadmill and I just like, oh Amber, I wish you could see me because like my shirt was like I was wearing like it wasn't like it was just like a normal shirt, but because like he's so low, my belly was showing, and I
Yeah.
was just walking, and I was like, this is not attractive like at all, and so it's just bad. So, but just trying to move, because when I'm not pregnant, like working out hardcore, like HIIT workouts to me are
Yeah.
because I am such a passionate and emotional person that I have to get those out in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And as a mom, creatively, I don't always get that opportunity to like,
Mm-hmm.
get all that out in like paint or photography or anything like that. So, and then now I'm really trying to be still. So that's the hard thing, is like being still and sitting with my emotions and like sitting and just being calm, because I've
Mm-hmm.
never experienced that and I've never practiced it. So, um,
Yeah.
and so sitting there and like honestly, like that has played such a role in how I read the Bible, because I'm such
Mm-hmm.
a quick, go, like reaction type of person
Mm-hmm.
that I'm like, okay, what's the Bible going to give me right now? Like, come on, let's go,
Right.
let's
Yeah.
go. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's a horrible way to live, and like a horrible way to like meet like Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like speed dating, like um,
I wouldn't say it's horrible, but I do think that there are better ways.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. I just like,
I
because I realized I was like the I do have to be careful with my wording too, because again, like I'm pretty hard on myself. So, um, but yeah, I'm just like,
good for you
this
for
is really,
recognizing that. Yeah.
this is really bad.
Yes.
And just being like, okay, like, let's breathe. I like every time you share something about anxiety or like breathing, I like bookmark it, because I'm like, I need to do this. So,
So I knew you were coming on, so I wrote a blog post and I linked it in my profile, but about like 3 kind of techniques for if you're having anxiety attacks, kind of breath and connecting to your body kind of techniques. But something I would love to say about sitting still with your emotions is that the more you hate it, the more you probably need it.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I always tell my therapy clients, right? They come in and it's yoga therapy and they like think we're just going to do a lot of yoga, and a lot of it is like me like making them lay down and breathe, and they're like, damn it, I hate this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I know you do.
Yeah.
I know you hate it, but you have to keep coming back because you have to learn to love it.
Yes. Yes. No, it's so good. It's just like constant, and like that's like seriously such a good tool in your tool belt to have, because it's just like, I mean, I'm noticing too, like even with kids, I'm like, I want to be different, and I don't want to
Right.
be a reaction type mom, you know, and I want to, yeah, be able to be like, okay.
You're like, you did just in fact pull everything out of that drawer, but it's going to be okay.
Oh, like yesterday, she literally coughed in my mouth, coughed like in it, and it took everything. I was like, okay. And so,
Well, that just happened.
and like as a pregnant person, like I'm like drowning in elderberry syrup. So it's just like, I'm like, there's nothing that I can do, but yeah, just simple things like that.
Gotcha. So, then, like, so for you, like a good practice of just sitting and being still, and being in the Word really has helps you and helps you stay present
Yeah, no, totally. Like
with
being
your.
like actually like taking time to be in the Word for sure.
Yeah, and then moving your body. Obviously, you're not doing a ton of HIIT workouts right now.
No, I like can barely breathe. It's like,
Right?
yeah. So,
Yeah, I get that. Yes. So, if anybody has any questions for me or Brittany about anxiety or depression, you guys can start writing them out now, and we will try to answer you as we can. Um, this is not going to post to IGTV because IGTV hates me
does
personally.
it?
It does
Oh,
hate me. I can post little things, but not big, long things. So
yeah,
these will be on YouTube, and the link for that is going to
cool.
be in How to Get Over a Loved One. Oh, that's a hard one. Um, and then, so that'll be a link in the profile if you want to see the video, a replay of this. So somebody asked how to get over a loved one, and I don't know if you mean like a loved one passed away or maybe a breakup, but that's really hard and that's really sad. And I don't think that that's something you should rush getting over. I think that that is something that you need to take time to process and grieve what you've lost. And I think a good space to do that in is not by yourself, but with somebody who can hold space for you. So if that's like a really good friend or a counselor, um, or, a parent or somebody, um, then that would be my recommendation. Like my recommendation would be to allow yourself to fully grieve, to recognize that the emotions that you feel can't hurt you. They're like big waves, right? They come in and they feel overwhelming, but then they go back out. As long as you let them come through you, as long as you feel them, as long as you're not trying to suppress them and bottle them up. If you just let it wash over you, then it will leave and it'll just become less and less and less as long as you're allowing yourself to feel that. What
That's
do
so
you
great.
think? Do you
I
have
love
one
that.
you
That's
think
like,
anything?
no, that's so great. I love that.
When you realize you're getting really anxious, how do you calm yourself down? Do you have one for that? Yeah,
I'm
she's
like, you're
pointing
like
at
the
me.
pro at this. I'm like, you just need to tell us how to breathe. And like, I can't teach anyone, I feel like, right
You,
now.
right there, right there. So if you are finding yourself super anxious, you could look at the blog post I did because I have 3 different ways you can calm yourself down. But the box breath is my favorite breath that you can do when you're experiencing that, and it's the same breath that like Navy SEALs use when they're about to like go on a mission. So if it's good enough for Navy SEALs,
Yeah.
right?
No, I
Good
was
enough
doing
for
it.
us.
I was like, this is great.
It's great, right? So
Yeah.
you inhale for a count, however much you want. Like you can build up, start with 4. So you inhale for a count of 4, and then you would hold your breath for a count of 4, and then you exhale for a count of 4, and then you hold your breath out for a count of 4. And so you're like drawing a box with your breath and imagining that you're drawing that box. And that is a way to kind of trick your nervous system into calming down. And then another fast trick is to eat a bunch of gum, like as many pieces as you can fit in your mouth. You chew
That's
a bunch of
amazing.
gum, because the sugar in your stomach and the chewing motion of your jaw makes your body think that you're eating. And like nobody is like running away from a bear and eating a cheeseburger, right? So your body's like, oh, there must not really actually be something to be anxious about
Yeah.
because we're eating. So
And
that's fun.
crunchy things, right? Like crunchy things are like stress. I'm like, I know that I'm also stressed when I like will eat like a whole thing of like popcorn, and I'm like, I have a problem. I need to go breathe after eating all that
There you go.
popcorn.
There you go, take a breath, drink some water.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh. All right. Any other questions or anything before we hop off? Brittany, do you have anything else you want to say?
Thank you for having me. Like seriously, I feel like it's gonna I'm so hopeful for just for God to use my story and just
Yeah.
because I just want to encourage like everyone watching that nothing is wasted at all. And I know it is like painful. Like I've been to like the dark places, and I know I don't want to compare and just say like I've been where anyone else has been hurting, but I feel like now I'm at a place where I'm like, okay, like I need to apply the tools. I also feel like I am picking up the pieces in a very like hopeful and joyful way of like depression does so much to your body. It's not even funny. Like the 7 deadly sins in the Bible, y'all read the Bible. It's like, you know, it's just because it's like the emotions that are stuck, you know, I'm like I love health. And then like just realizing like, oh my gosh, like we can trap emotions in certain parts of our body. Amber is like all about that, I feel like. But just realizing that, and just having like, I feel like I finally have hope for the first time like in my life. And yeah, just like seeing, I don't know, I just feel like I hope I can just encourage anyone, and just if you are at that place, like just keep going. So yeah.
Yeah. Zachary, this will be up in the story, and then you can catch it on YouTube later. And the link for that is in my profile. Oh, that's nice. Some people are saying nice things.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Oh, thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Brittany, thank you. Do you have anything else?
I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you guys for just like commenting, and thank you, Amber, for like even thinking of me for like doing this. And yeah, just be on the lookout for like more.
I'm excited.
Like with what God's gonna do
for you. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited for you. I think I'm really excited to see too how having this baby kind of is different for you, right? Because now you have tools and you have like knowledge in place that you just didn't have when Tinley was born. So I'm excited for that for you too.
Thanks, friends.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And we will be back next week with Abby Mortensen. She's going to talk to us about grief and actually losing her mom. So if somebody had commented about that earlier, so if that's for you, come back next Wednesday.
Thank you, Amber.
Love you.
Love you. Bye, guys.